Hey everybody, my name is Emily and welcome back to my channel where I review, critique, and summarize scary children's books. Hope you guys are all having a fantastic day. Today in this video, I will be your guide to Out of the Wild Night. This is a middle grade novel by Blue Balliett. In this video, I will summarize the book for you. I'm going to talk about the content a little bit and give that a bit of a review as well. And finally, as always, I'll talk about any horror elements at play here. So this book is set on the island of Nantucket, and it is told from the point of view of an elderly ghost named Mary W. Chase, who manifests after her death, sometime after her death, without really knowing why. She observes island life as a new kind of town crier. This is kind of the role that she was brought into when she manifested after her death. She observes what life on the island is like since she died, and she thinks it's pretty different. And she also realizes that there is a villainous real estate developer who is hell-bent on destroying, gutting, and totally revamping a lot of the old traditional houses built on the island in the 19th century. So Mary knows that she and the other ghosts present on the island, who she can't really contact but she knows are there, she knows that they must stop this real estate developer from destroying all of the tradition on this island, all of these traditional buildings. So she and the Nantucket ghosts enlist a kind of ragtag group of children to try and preserve the memory and all of the tradition on the island of Nantucket. She basically wants to save the island's old ways. So this was my first Blue Balliett novel. I know that she's done a few more popular works, but I've never read them, so this was my first of hers. I was really disappointed in this book. I had high hopes for it. I really like place-based ghost stories, and a lot of ghost stories are, most ghost stories are place-based, but I really like these kinds of ghost stories with strong senses of setting and strong senses of history. But there were a lot of things that held this book back for me, and I'll go into a little bit of it here. But first, I do want to talk a little bit about what I liked about this book, and there are a few things that I really liked about it. I think telling this story from the point of view of a ghost is really kind of a novel and interesting idea. Mary herself is an interesting character. You kind of get inside her head and you can sort of see what her point of view is, especially when it comes to her strong opinion about conserving the old ways on this island. You really get to sort of see her point of view on the matter, so I like the idea of telling this from a ghost's POV. I also like that this is something like historical fiction. It's not really historical fiction, but it's so based in history and what history means that it almost reads like historical fiction in some ways, because the memory of what the island was like in the 19th century is so strong and it permeates through this entire book. The parts in this book with the kids that are really focused on the kids and their personalities and the kind of fun that they have and, you know, their feelings, that kind of thing, is really good. I really like these parts. You really get a sense of the camaraderie between these children. And not only that, but the camaraderie between the children and the ghosts of the island. It's a really interesting idea that children should be more sensitive to ghost activity. And I like that children are kind of the main players in this book when it comes to preserving these old ways, these old traditions. It's really neat to see kids and ghosts come together in this way. There were some really fun ideas in this book. I like the idea of Mary W. Chase being the town crier, kind of bringing attention to a certain issue. I really liked the character of the villain. I thought that he was really slimy, and even she says he's kind of like an eel. He's very much in this for his own personal gain, and he likes the idea of sort of raising all of this history from Nantucket, so I thought the villain was well done. However, there were so many things about this book that I felt held it back. I couldn't really get into it, and I had a really hard time finishing it. I found myself just reading the same line over and over and over again, and I think it has to do with a few things. The first thing I want to mention was actually the most troubling for me, and it permeated through the whole book, and I had a really hard time enjoying the book because of this. Balliett does very briefly allude to the indigenous people that lived on this island before it became Nantucket, before settlers came in and colonized it, but it's very brief. She gives this very brief nod. Everything that she mentions is kind of from the 19th century. She spends so much time talking about the importance of those traditions and the importance of conserving those memories and the old ways, basically, that there's no time or gravity or weight given to the traditions that existed even before these people, that are even older than the settlers on this island, right? I do think that it is extremely troubling to locate the previous history of Nantucket in the historical past and treat it like it doesn't matter anymore. Hey guys, so I'm just gonna cut in here for 1 second because as I'm editing the video, I realize that this is a really great opportunity for me to make sure that you guys know that I'm going to put a link in the description below to what I think is a really great resource for ideas on this topic. The link that I'm gonna put in the description below is to an amazing blog written by Debbie Reese, who is a children's literature scholar, and she does amazing, amazing work specifically on how Indigenous people are portrayed in children's literature. Hers is a voice that you should be checking out, and she is far more of an authority on this topic than I am. So I just wanted to mention that. I wanted to cut in here and just let you guys know that that's something that I'm gonna do. Didn't feel right just to put it in the description and not mention it in the video. So yeah, okay. Now I'm done, bye. So aside from the way that is treated, there are a couple of other issues that I had with the book. I think that the writing overall is pretty good. It's nothing to write home about, but it's pretty good. However, a lot of what goes on in the story seems almost shrouded by uncertainty. And by that I mean that the book almost seems like it doesn't even know where it's going. To give you an idea of what I mean, when I was summarizing this book for this video, it took me ages to try and even figure out what to say, because when I finished the book, I wasn't even sure what the book actually was even about, in the weirdest way. One of the best ways that I think that I can sort of talk about this is by actually reading you the blurb on the inside of the dust jacket here. When reading this, I had no idea what the book was about, and I think even the blurb writer had some trouble actually describing what goes on in this book. So it says, "Ghosts are alive on the island of Nantucket. You can hear them in the wind and in the creaks of the old homes. They want to be remembered, and even more, they want to protect what was once theirs. The ghosts have chosen a few local kids to help them in a time of danger. But the kids can't be sure how the ghosts are going to act. Things often behave strangely when ghosts are around. People get in trouble, especially if they go against what the ghosts want. Only the kids can make things right, if the ghosts will let them." So that blurb basically says nothing about what the book is actually about. And I went into this book not knowing what to expect, and I came out of this book feeling like I didn't really know more than when I started. And that's not to say that things don't happen in this book. Things definitely happen in this book, and it has a narrative, but it almost just seems aimless. Like, it almost just seems like it's wandering around in the dark. I'm having a hard time describing exactly what it was that made this so murky, made it so unclear for me all the way through. It does, I think, have to do with the writing, but I do have a bit of a hard time putting my finger on it. So maybe if any of you guys have read this book, you can tell me what you think the issue was here. When it comes to the horror elements here, there are a lot of really cool, spooky scenes in this book. One in particular really stood out to me, where it's not really a spoiler, but where these people are standing on a beach and all of these ghosts, these sort of invisible ghosts, come tramping out of the water just en masse, and the people are standing on the beach watching these footprints in the sand kind of go by them. Such a cool scene. I thought that was really spooky, but really kind of gorgeous as well. The horror elements here are, to an extent, done really well. I'll have to say that the ghost story aspect of this book is probably the strongest aspect here. There is lots of talk of ghosts being kind of simultaneously scary, but also helpful, and I like that. I like the idea of horror stuff being able to tell us things about life and about the world. I do think that Blue Balliett is really imaginative when it comes to the horror stuff here. We get a lot of creative kind of ghost encounters that I really enjoyed, and I think she really has her finger on writing for middle grade. So all in all, I think as a ghost story for middle grade, this is a pretty successful book, but everything else that comes with it keeps the book from reaching its full potential, sadly. Hopefully all of that made sense. So guys, I would recommend this book with hesitancy. I would think that if you are going to give this to a middle grade aged child in your life, I think that you should consider having a conversation with them about how this book is exclusionary of Indigenous points of view. But when thinking of just the ghost story and just how creative this book is, I would say give it a go. If you're an adult that likes to read middle grade, give it a go. All right guys, so that is it for my review today. Thank you so much for watching as always. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more of me on here, go ahead and hit subscribe. I'll be here doing reviews of scary kids books for the foreseeable future. And you can follow me on various social media as well. The links are in the description. All right guys, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you again next week. See ya.